A Lakota warrior stands tall, his face painted red with ochre, a feathered lance gripped in his left hand, his right steadying a painted pony. Blood stains his buckskin shirt from the fight. On June 25, 1876, this man, one of 1,500 to 2,000 native fighters, faced 600 soldiers of the 7th Cavalry. Private John Ryan, in his blue uniform torn at the sleeve, saw 260 of his comrades fall, their bodies later found scalped and broken. Historians note 45 of Reno's men died in one charge alone, a toll recorded in army logs. The tribes lost warriors too, perhaps 100, though exact counts remain buried with them. Their courage stopped Custer cold. Ryan later found 3 heads of his friends wired to a pole, hair burned off, a sight etched in his memory. What pushed these warriors to win against such odds, only to lose their world within a decade? We walk through the dust and blood of the Battle of Little Bighorn. This clash happened on June 25, 1876. It marked a key moment in the Great Sioux War. Over 600 soldiers of the 7th Cavalry faced a force of 1,500 to 2,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors. This was no small fight. It was a brutal meeting of two worlds. The U.S. Army sought to force the tribes onto reservations. The native peoples fought to protect their lands and lives. Historians estimate the tribes had 800 lodges in their camp, a sign of their strength, as noted by scout reports from the time. Our guide is Private John Ryan from Company M. He stood among the 45 men of his unit, 14 of whom died that day. His account, written years later, gives us a clear view of the chaos. Ryan saw 260 soldiers fall across the battlefield, a number confirmed by General Terry's report. His words push us to look harder at this defeat. What he shares is not just a story. It questions old ideas about Custer's last stand. Historians like Robert Utley call it a turning point, a rare native victory in a losing war. Now we step forward. The march to this bloody day begins our journey. The 7th Cavalry began their march on June 24, 1876. They numbered around 600 men, a strong force moving fast across the Montana Territory. Private John Ryan, a soldier in Company M, wrote about this day. He said they cut loose packs that slowed them down. These were heavy bundles tied to mules. The ropes got loose, and the men sliced them free with knives. Ryan noted the tribes likely picked up those items later. This detail shows how every moment counted as they pushed forward. That night, the regiment stopped in a ravine. They did not unsaddle their horses. Each man lay down with reins wrapped around his arm. Ryan called this a common habit for cavalry on the move. It kept the horses ready to ride at any second. The air felt tense. General George Armstrong Custer led this group. He wore his blue uniform with gold trim, a wide hat shading his face. He took a small team of scouts ahead. They rode out to check the land and find the native camp. When Custer came back, he carried news that would change everything. The next morning, the men ate a quick meal. Ryan described it as raw bacon, hardtack, and cold water from canteens. He said it tasted good to them, a sign of how hungry and focused they were. Custer called his officers together after this. He stood tall, his voice firm, and gave orders. He split the 600 men into 3 groups. His own battalion had 5 companies, about 2 of 10 soldiers. These were Troops C, E, F, I, and L, led by men like Captain Thomas Custer, his brother, and Captain Miles Keogh. Major Marcus Reno got 3 companies, Troops A, G, and M, with around 130 men. Captain Frederick Benteen took 3 more, Troops D, H, and K, totaling about 120 soldiers. A pack train followed with 150 mules, guarded by Captain Thomas McDougall and his Troop B, plus a few men from each company. This train carried food, bullets, and gear, vital for a long fight. This split raises big questions. Custer faced an enemy he could not fully count. Later reports, like those from General Terry, put the native force at 1,500 to 2,000 warriors. Historian Nathaniel Philbrick says Custer knew the risks but trusted his speed. Ryan's account shows a leader who acted fast, maybe too fast. Custer's men had fought smaller groups before, like in Kansas in 1868, where he won against 500 Cheyenne. Here, the numbers were different. The Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho stood united, a force twice as large as any Ryan had seen, he later wrote. Did Custer think his 600 could win? Some call him a glory seeker. Historian Evan Connell argues he chased fame after years of war. Yet Ryan paints a man who planned, not just dreamed. The march went on with care. Lieutenant Hodgson, a young officer under Reno, rode from the front to the back. He told the companies to stay apart. This kept the dust low. A big cloud could warn the tribes miles away. Ryan said they crossed a divide, a high ridge splitting the land. On the other side, they saw empty lodges. These were tall tents with doors tied shut. Ryan guessed they held dead chiefs from a fight on June 17th. General Crook's men had clashed with the Sioux then, killing several leaders, as Army records show. The 7th Cavalry did not stop to check. They moved down a small valley and circled a bluff. From there, they looked out. Ryan said they saw shapes far off, maybe Indians, maybe buffalo. Custer made his call. He sent Reno after them. That choice, Ryan noted, set the stage for what came next. We will follow that path soon. The sun rose higher on June 25, 1876. General Custer gave his orders. He sent Major Marcus Reno and his battalion down the valley toward the Little Bighorn River. Private John Ryan rode with Company M, one of 130 men in Reno's group. They started at a trot. Soon their horses broke into a gallop. The ground shook under them. They reached the river, a wide stretch about 50 yards across. The water ran fast. Quicksand pulled at their boots, 3 feet deep in spots. Ryan said they waded through, holding reins tight. Every man felt the weight of the moment. Ahead of them rode Lieutenant Charles Varnum. He led the scouts, a small team of 6 Indian allies and a few soldiers. Varnum wore a blue coat and a wide hat. He waved that hat high in the air. His voice cut through the wind. He shouted, 30 days furlough to the man who gets the first scalp. Ryan heard it clear. He said the men wanted the rest more than the trophy. They pushed on, crossing the river's far bank. There they stopped for a moment. They tightened their saddle straps. Then they mounted up again. Reno gave the signal. They formed a line. Company M took the right side, 45 men strong. Company G held the left with about 40 soldiers. Company A, around 45 more, stayed back as support. They moved forward, covering 2 miles of open ground. A single shot broke the silence. Ryan wrote he could not tell where it came from. It might have been Varnum's scouts, firing at a shadow, or it could have been a Lakota warrior, hidden in the brush. That sound marked the start. The battle had begun. Reno's men reached a grove of trees thick with timber. They jumped off their horses. Every 4th man held the reins, keeping the animals close. The rest spread out. They formed a skirmish line, stretching from the trees to the open valley. Ryan stood with his rifle ready. From this spot, they saw the native camp for the first time. It sprawled across the land, 800 lodges at least, as Scout Mitch Boyer had warned Custer earlier. That meant 1,500 to 2,000 warriors, numbers later confirmed by General Terry's count. Then the charge came. About 500 warriors rode hard at them. Ryan saw them clear. They wore war paint, red and black streaks on their faces. Feathers trailed from lances and shields. Their ponies kicked up dust. These men carried rifles, bows, and clubs. They aimed to break the line. Ryan and his company fired back. Their Springfield carbines spat bullets, caliber .45. The volleys hit hard. Many saddles emptied as warriors fell. Historian Robert Utley writes that Reno's men held for a time, maybe 20 minutes. But the tribes did not stop. They changed their plan. They rode in a single line, circling the soldiers. They hung low on their ponies' sides, using the animals as shields. Bullets flew over them. Ryan counted the odds. He said they faced 10 enemies for every one of his men. The line started to crack. The warriors closed in. Their shouts filled the air. Reno's position weakened fast. Ryan watched it happen. He said staying in the timber would have ended them all. The native force was too big, too strong. Major Reno made a call. He wore no hat that day, just a red handkerchief tied around his head. His coat was dusty from the ride. He stood up and yelled for his men to move. They had to get out. Some historians like Evan Connell call Reno a coward for this. They say he ran when he should have fought, but Ryan saw it different. He wrote that Reno faced a trap. The numbers proved it. Army records show 45 of Reno's 130 men died that day. Staying meant losing all 130. Was Reno right to pull back? Historians argue both sides. Nathaniel Philbrick says Reno saved what he could, a tough choice under fire. Others point to Custer's orders. Ryan heard Custer promise support, though he did not hear the words himself. That help never came. Reno's retreat left blood on the ground, but it kept some alive. The next steps would show if that choice held. We will see what followed this desperate moment. The situation turned dire for Reno's men. Warriors surrounded them in the timber grove. Private John Ryan saw the danger close in. The line could not hold. Men ran back to their horses, boots sinking in the dirt. Sergeant Miles O'Hara went down first. He had just become a sergeant days before, replacing a man whose time was up. A bullet hit him as he reached for his mount. He fell hard, blood staining the ground. Ryan knew him well. His loss hit the company deep. They had no time to stop. Captain Thomas French stood near Ryan. He wore a blue coat, buttons glinting in the sun. He looked out and saw riders in the brush. He called out to Ryan. He said those were Custer's men coming to help. Hope flickered for a moment. Then a shot rang out. Private George Lawrence took it in the neck. The bullet came from behind, tearing through and out his mouth. He dropped forward, dead before he hit the earth. French's mistake became clear. Those were not friends. They were Lakota and Cheyenne warriors closing the circle. Ryan pointed it out. He told French the truth. The captain's face tightened. Major Marcus Reno took charge. He had lost his hat in the chaos. A red handkerchief wrapped his head, soaked with sweat. His voice rose above the gunfire. He shouted, "Any man wishing to escape, follow me." He turned his horse and led the way. The men followed fast. They charged up a steep bluff, a wall of dirt and rock ahead. The slope rose sharp, nearly 30 feet high in places, as Ryan later wrote. They rode hard, some on foot, pulling at reins. Warriors pressed in from all sides. The fight turned close. Soldiers used revolvers, firing into chests at arm's length. Warriors swung clubs and thrust lances. Ryan saw it happen. He said 30 men fell in that breakout. Army records back him up. Among them was Bloody Knife, the chief scout. He wore a beaded vest, a gift from his Arapaho people. A bullet took him down. Lieutenant Donald McIntosh went too. He led Company G, a steady man with dark hair. His horse stumbled and he was lost in the rush. The native warriors showed their skill. Ryan watched them work. They rode in tight lines, overlapping Reno's men on the left. They climbed higher ground, firing down from the ridge. Their rifles cracked loud, some old trade guns, others newer Winchesters, as historian Robert Utley notes. They tightened the trap step by step. Ryan said their discipline stood out. He had fought tribes before in Kansas under Custer in 1868. This was different. The Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho moved as one. Estimates put their numbers at 1,500 to 2,000, far more than the 130 with Reno. Historian Nathaniel Philbrick calls their tactics a masterpiece. They adapted fast, shifting from a charge to a noose. Ryan's words lift this above Custer's story. The tribes often get less credit, but here they ruled the field. Reno kept his men moving. Critics like Evan Connell say he broke too soon. They claim he left Custer to die. Ryan saw a leader under pressure. Reno held what was left, about 85 men by then. They reached the bluff's top, lungs burning. Captain Frederick Benteen arrived soon after. His 120 men from Troops D, H, and K rode in, dust trailing behind. Then came the pack train, 150 mules led by Captain Thomas McDougall. They brought boxes of bullets, 24,000 rounds total, as Army logs show. Ryan said this saved them. Without it, their guns would have gone quiet. The warriors still fired from below. The cost was heavy. Ryan counted the losses. Reno's command started with 130 men. Now 45 lay dead. 60 more carried wounds. Company M alone lost 14, a third of its strength. Blood marked the trail up the bluff. Historian Stephen Ambrose says Reno's retreat was messy but vital. He kept a core alive. Survival balanced on a thin edge. They made it to the high ground. Benteen's men spread out. The mules unloaded gear. Ryan looked back at the valley. Warriors moved among the fallen, taking what they could. The fight was not over. The bluffs would test them next. The men reached the bluffs, exhausted but alive. Private John Ryan looked down from the high ground. He saw warriors moving through the valley below. They stripped the fallen soldiers, taking coats and boots. Some used knives to cut the bodies, a ritual of war, Ryan noted in his account. He said it was hard to watch. The dead numbered 45 from Reno's command alone, a figure backed by Army records. The sight stayed with him. The fight was far from over. The warriors came again, hundreds strong. Ryan counted them as they charged up the slopes. They rode ponies painted with red and yellow marks. Their war cries echoed loud. The soldiers had little to fight with. They made a defense from what they had. They pulled mules into a circle, about 150 animals from the pack train. Men stacked boxes of hardtack, hard bread rations, around the edges. Ryan said they used sacks of bacon and oats too. This wall stood low, maybe 3 feet high. It was all they could build. The warriors fired from below. Bullets hit the boxes and mules. One warrior stood out. He rode to a ridge on the right, a high spot overlooking the line. He carried a rifle, likely a Winchester, as historian Robert Utley suggests. He shot fast. 3 men near Ryan fell. One took a bullet to the chest, another to the head. The third got hit in the shoulder and crawled back. Ryan turned to Captain Thomas French. French stood tall, his blue coat dusty and torn. He held a Springfield rifle, caliber .50. He had notched the stock for every kill, a habit Ryan knew well. French nodded to Ryan. They gathered 6 men from Company M. They aimed at the ridge. Their volley rang out, a sharp crack of gunfire. The warrior dropped. No more shots came from that spot. Ryan said French's skill saved them there. Historian Evan Connell calls French a steady hand, a sharpshooter who stood out in the dark. His rifle work gave the men a moment to breathe. The siege went on. Water sat 300 yards away, down at the river. The men needed it bad. Their canteens ran dry. Ryan said several tried to reach it that night. They moved under cover of darkness, slipping down the bluff. Warriors waited. Shots lit up the shadows. Most never came back. Ryan counted at least 5 lost this way, a detail from his notes. Then around midnight, a trumpet sounded. The men cheered. They thought Custer had come. Ryan said hope rose fast. Major Reno ordered a trumpeter to reply. No answer came. The sound was a trick. The warriors had a bugle, likely taken from Custer's dead, as Nathaniel Philbrick writes. It fooled the soldiers, but they stayed put. The next day, June 26th, brought more fighting. The attacks grew harder. Captain Frederick Benteen held a key part of the line. His 120 men faced heavy fire. Warriors pushed close, some within 50 yards. Benteen sent word to Reno. He said he could not hold much longer. French led Company M to help. They charged down a slope, 30 men left in his unit. Ryan ran with them. They drove the warriors back, but it cost lives. Private James Tanner fell in the open. A bullet hit his side. Ryan and 3 others grabbed a blanket. They ran out, bullets tearing holes in their sleeves. They rolled Tanner in and carried him to safety. He died minutes later, blood soaking the cloth. Ryan said the loss never left him. The tribes showed their power. Ryan wrote they outnumbered any force he had seen. He fought in Kansas in 1868, facing 500 Cheyenne. This was bigger, maybe 2,000 warriors, twice that size. Army estimates agree, putting the total at 1,500 to 2,000. Their strength wore the soldiers down. Yet that evening, it stopped. Ryan watched them pull back. They took down their lodges, 800 or more, leaving the poles bare. They moved up the Little Bighorn Valley, a long line of riders and families. The retreat came fast. Ryan could not say why. Historian Stephen Ambrose calls it a choice to protect their people after a win. The bluffs fell quiet, but the cost stayed heavy. The morning of June 27, 1876, started quiet on the bluffs. Private John Ryan stood with the survivors. No gunfire broke the silence. Then dust rose in the distance. Men squinted to see. General Alfred Terry's forces came into view. They crossed the river, about 400 soldiers strong, with General John Gibbon's command alongside. Ryan said their arrival brought relief. Terry's scouts had news. They found Custer's battalion across the Little Bighorn. All 207 men lay dead, a count Terry reported to the army. The bodies stretched over a mile, some near a ford, where Custer first met the warriors. Ryan's unit turned to their own task. They had 45 dead to bury from Reno's command. The soldiers worked fast. They dug shallow graves on the bluffs. Ryan helped pile dirt over Private James Tanner and Henry Voigt. They used a hardtack box as a marker, scratching names with a pencil. Extra gear sat in heaps. They had rifles, saddles, and bridles from the fallen. No mules could carry it all. Ryan said they broke the rifle stocks and burned them. Flames ate the wood and leather. The wounded needed care too. Terry's men carried 60 injured soldiers down to their camp. They cut off torn uniforms first, a detail from army logs. Ryan watched it all. He said the horses suffered too. About 15 from Company M were dead or lame. They shot the worst off to end their pain. A Crow scout named Curly rode in with Terry. He wore a Sioux blanket taken during his escape. Ryan heard his story later. Curly had been with Custer's 207 men. He saw the fight start. Warriors surrounded them fast. Curly swapped his Crow gear for a Sioux blanket. He washed off his paint and tied his hair different. Then he grabbed a Sioux pony. He rode out during a charge down the river to safety. Curly met Terry on June 26. He showed what he saw. He took a paper and pencil from Terry. He drew a circle for Custer's men, dots all around for the warriors. Then he scattered leaves on it. He said the white men died like that, thick as leaves. Historian Robert Utley calls Curly's tale true. It matched the 207 bodies Terry found. Ryan said it felt hard to believe at first, but the proof lay there. Ryan looked back on the fight. He praised Captain Frederick Benteen. Benteen's 120 men joined Reno just in time. Without them, Ryan said, no one would have lived. Captain Thomas French stood out too. His sharpshooting killed warriors and held the line. Ryan counted the cost in Company M. They started with 45 men. Now 14 were gone, a third of their horses too. Army records show Reno's total losses at 45 dead, 60 wounded. The numbers hit hard. Ryan wondered about Custer's plan. He split 600 men into 3 parts. His own group of 210 faced 1,500 to 2,000 warriors. Historian Evan Connell says Custer chased glory. He had won before, like against 500 Cheyenne in 1868. This time the odds turned. The tribe's strength changed it all. Leaders like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse brought them together. Ryan said he never saw so many warriors, maybe twice his past campaigns. Estimates agree, putting their force at 1,500 to 2,000. Nathaniel Philbrick writes they fought as one, a rare unity. History often points to Custer's pride. He pushed too far, some say. Ryan's words shift the view. He saw 2 sides giving everything. The soldiers wanted victory. The Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho needed to live. Their win came from skill, not luck. Historian Stephen Ambrose calls it a clash of wills. Both paid a price. The dead on the field told half the story. What came after would tell the rest. The Battle of Little Bighorn ended, its echoes lost in the Montana dust. Private John Ryan's story brings us close to that day. He fought to survive, one of 600 soldiers facing a storm. The Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho stood stronger, 1,500 to 2,000 warriors united. Ryan saw their power firsthand. His words show a clash that left deep marks. The tribes took a stand on June 25, 1876. They won with bravery and skill. History counts 260 soldiers dead, 207 from Custer's group alone. The native losses stay less clear, maybe 100 warriors, a number buried in the silence of the plains. That victory did not last. The Great Sioux War rolled on. Within a decade, the tribes lost their lands. Reservations took their place. Ryan's account makes their strength real. He faced them and lived. Their fight moves me. It shows a people holding tight to their world. I hope it stirs you too. Thanks for walking this path with me. Please like and subscribe for more stories from history. Before you leave, think about this. The tribes won a battle with 800 lodges behind them, yet lost a war that took everything. What does it mean to claim a triumph when 2,000 warriors could not stop the end? Share your thoughts below.